2 periods, but I was able to ask the bartender to actually Anthony LaPanta got the bartender's attention, and we had to take it off the Winter X Games in a bar in Breckenridge. They were not happy. There were a lot of people not happy with us, but we put on the third period. We were at least able to watch that. But to me, it's just not exciting. The one exciting All-Star game I ever covered was, and there were actual hits in the game. It was in Dallas. Brian Ralston was there, and honestly, he's still to this day, I say, got robbed of being the MVP that game. But he had a couple goals and an assist, and it was just fun to actually cover that. In LA, it was fun for me to cover it because you had Boudreaux there, who was, it was during the whole NHL's greatest 100 players thing. So we were able to cover that. And then the Wild had Dubnyk and Suter there as well, so there were multiple players. But to me, it's just it doesn't get me as excited as maybe it once did years ago.
The amazing thing is, the Pro Bowl still gets huge ratings for what it is. And I always question that, and I think back when I was a kid, and before I got into this business, I watched that kind of stuff all the time. Now I feel like the baseball All-Star Game is the only All-Star Game that, to me, is really worth an investment of time because it's the only All-Star Game where the defense is doing its best. Mm-hmm. And where every other All-Star Game, the defense is taking it easy, trying not to get hurt. Baseball, the pitchers and the fielders want to get outs.
Yeah, and the winner hosts the World Series. Is that the rule?
Yes.
Is that the
stupid? And that's a stupid rule.
Yeah.
But I will say, as awkward as that rule feels, when I was covering All-Star games before that rule was invoked, people were leaving in the fourth inning or fifth inning, heading for the private jet, and they were in the air before the game was over. That was terrible for the game. Terrible for that game, and terrible for the sport. Yep. They invoked that, and all of a sudden there's peer pressure to perform well and be part of a team. It has changed the way the game goes.
I will say, when you're hosting the event, it is a fun event.
It is.
Because they got the Fan Fest, which is absolutely fun. It's fun in the city that's there, but I think the average fan just doesn't get excited about it. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe you look at the ratings here in Minnesota; they're still technically lousy, but they were the 4th or 5th best of any market in the country. So clearly, people are interested in it in hockey markets, but still, the overall rating not very good. So I don't think that it captures the imagination of hockey fans the way that the league would love. I don't know how you change that, though. It is what it is. These players aren't going to go out and hit each other. They're not going to play for all is broke and everything like that. So I don't know how you change it, but other than maybe trying something like an outdoor type of all-star game or something like that. I mean, that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, the problem is I think the only real way to make it more of a pure competition would be to sully it, which is if you offered everybody a big bonus if they won, and nobody. And
the NHL does that. They split $1 million.
Oh,
okay. 11 players.
Has
each
that
get
worked?
about 90 something. Well, I mean, there are players that are $90-something thousand richer. That's worked that way, I guess.
My question is that enough to incentivize them?
It hasn't turned them into they're all trying to go out and bang hit each other. They want to win the game. They're competitors. The game the other night, I mean, the Central were down 3-0 before anybody really had a chance to wake up. So I don't know.
All right. What's gotten into Eric Staal?
I think that he just is out of his rut. He's playing with great line mates right now. He really loves this line. He's on with Coyle and Greenway. And I think that everybody on their current line right now is working extra hard to stay on their current line for specific reasons. And one guy's trying to overlap his shifts to play with other guys for specific reasons.
Who might that be?
Zach. I mean, there's a reason why every time Zach gets a point now, it's because he overextends his shift to get on with somebody else, and he does it the other night with Coyle and Staal, and it's because that line is just that line with Rask and Aberg has no pace. Yeah. It's just an ineffective line. So it's so obvious, and we saw it the other night against Colorado. But Stahl's a heck of a player. He looked like he went through a rut where he did midseason last year, where he looked tired. Now he's sort of out of it. He's scoring slam dunk goals, which is what you want from him, and I think it's great. Now it puts the Wild in an interesting position here, because I do think that it is very clear that Paul Fenton wants to make significant changes to this team. And Stahl, if all of a sudden they're in the playoff hunt come come February, is he going to, or come February 25th, the trade deadline, is he going to have the guts to trade him, especially if that means maybe making the team worse down the stretch, but getting futures? I don't think that would fly with the owner. They want to still make the playoffs and try to go on a run, and they are, and depending again what you get back, if you trade Eric Staal and don't get centers back, you're not making yourself a better team. So right now, I think that, and I'll have a story about it this week. I talked to Eric alone after the game the other night in Denver, and he said that during this rut that he had, he was getting really down. And one reason why he's getting down is that he doesn't want to be traded. And all of a sudden, he kind of had this come to Jesus meeting in his own head where he said, you know what, I need to be the one that helps us get out of this, so I am not in a position where this team trades me in a month. And I think that from that point on, he's getting better. We think that a savvy veteran like Eric Staal doesn't lose his confidence, but there's no doubt that he says, and it's happened a couple times this year, that his contract situation has worried him. And that was the danger of not signing him. So he goes through these ruts where maybe it's in his head, but the reality is that he's going to probably be the one, and the team's going to be the one to decide, meaning his teammates are going to be the ones to decide if he stays here. Let's
go to live questions. First, I do want to thank Fixology Repair. Check out fixologyrepair.com. Jewelry repair, watch and battery repair, cell phone repair, tablet and iPad repair. They just fixed 2 of my tablets recently. Apple Watch repair. We had somebody stop in, I think, one of the last live shows and say they just had dropped their phone or their watch and ran to Fixology and got it repaired in about half an hour. I just handed
them a watch.
Did you?
I did.
Which watch number 28?
No, this is 26? One of the two ones that I accidentally bought together.
They buy gold. They do engraving. Downtown Minneapolis, not far from us in the Skyway, right across from Dunn Brothers, south of the Wells Fargo Center, and the place I go to even more often, Fixology Repair, 3rd floor of the Mall of America by Nordstrom's.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at our 2 locations, Mall of America and the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at FixologyMN on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
Okay, Michael.
Actually, I was asking where your cut is. Oh. I heard about it.
Yeah, it's there. Do you recall a bigger trade deadline dilemma than Kekalainen has? And who is more likely to be traded, Bob or Panarin?
I think Bob is more likely to be traded because they have the backup there. But yeah, it's they're in a tough position. So if you don't know what Johnny's talking about, is right before the show.
Johnny, if you want a hat or a shirt, feel free.
Or a phone wallet.
You like, or a phone wallet.
Take an athletic phone wallet. I want to see. You don't really have to if you don't want. You really can take a shirt or a hat. I was just kidding. My God. Basically, right before the show, Dan Milstein, the agent of Kirill Kaprizov, by the way, put out a statement that basically said they informed the Columbus Blue Jackets that Panarin's not going to re-sign before the trade deadline, and so now it's basically the ball's in their court. They're going to let this play out. They'll talk after the season, which to me, anytime that usually happens, except for Steven Stamkos, who's the one precedent setter, where all of a sudden you go to the deadline and normally everybody leaves, or go to the free agency and normally everybody in history leaves when they say, remember Ryan Suter? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we're talking to Nashville. He was good as gone. Stamkos is the only one that I can think of that, and Wes Walls, by the way, but the only one that I can think of that went to the free agency and all of a sudden everybody was just blown away when he re-signed in Tampa. Well, Panarin, who has made it pretty much clear that as much as he loves Columbus, I think that he would like to go to a big city. That's the gist of what everybody believes here. His agent put out that they are not going to talk. So they'll wait till after the year. So now Columbus is in a position where you have this incredible asset that everybody in the league is going to want and has no trade ability. And so, are they going to let him walk for no compensation back in free agency, or do you trade him right now, even if it makes you worse, and try to get a bunch of things? So that's going to be the interesting thing. If that was pretty much your question, right, Johnny? Yeah. So I think Bob, there's some bad blood there, and they also got the backup goalie who's a heck of a player and is the future of that team anyway. So I think that Bobrovsky's probably the most likely to be traded, and that Columbus might look at Panarin and say they're kind of, almost do it justify it to your fans like this is our rental. We're not trading him. He's going to be our free agent rental, and if we lose him, we lose him. But that could have repercussions long term if you let a guy like that walk come free agency.
Yes, sir.
I have more of an idea so much as a question. You're talking about the All-Star game and making it more interesting, and we had the skills competition where we had the girls compete.
Yeah.
And actually win it, and then we had the big hashtag pay, and I can't remember.
Yeah, pay for Decker.
Pay Kendall, pay
Decker.
Pay so what about the idea of bringing the gals in on the All-Star game, even on the 3-on-3?
And play as part of it. And play as part of it.
And get
I think it opens.
I mean, in the Olympics.
It opens it up to a whole other demographic, which would make it fun as well. I do think that it just needs to. Yeah, great job. I do think that it just needs to.
T-shirt if you like.
It needs to be changed up. I think what they show is that every single year is that you have to do something to spice it up and make it interesting. And that obviously watching Kendall skate as fast as she did the other night. Added some huge excitement, especially after the fact for those of us that maybe didn't watch it, and reminds you that maybe there's a reason to watch it. But last year it was fun for me because I covered it and I had the whole Brock Besser thing to cover, and we didn't have a Vancouver writer there, so it was awesome for me to kind of shadow him throughout the weekend. And Eric Stahl made it fun as well, and you could do it with be with his family and watch that whole thing. But I still don't, in terms of the actual game, it's just not cool. So to your point, it would be, there are certain things they're going to have to do, I think, to spice it up. Or they just have to accept, hey, people aren't going to watch. It's not that exciting, and it's just going to be a corporate event, and just accept it for what it is.
Bert?
All right. First, I see Christian Folan starting for the Flyers tonight.
Oh yeah.
So I
saw him the other night when we were there. 3 weeks ago when we were
I didn't know Fletcher picked him up, and I don't know how Fenton.
No,
the defenseman on the waiver wire.
No, Folan has been there all year.
Oh, has he?
Yeah. He just hasn't played a lot.
Who knew? So, and then the other question is not really Wild related, but I was watching the Islanders the other night, and I was really impressed with the job Barry Trotz is doing.
Oh my God!
I'm going to get your opinion on that.
Well, you lose John Tavares, and Nick Leddy's having a tough year, and really goaltending wise, they're not. You come in with Robin Lehner and Greiss, and you're like, how the heck is this team going to compete? And yet here they are going into the All-Star break, and they're leading their division. It is unbelievable job that he is doing. They're getting great play from guys like Barzal. It's gonna put a lot of pressure on Anders Lee right now to maybe extend his contract here and stay and be the guy. They made him captain for a reason. And where a lot of people thought that Anders Lee was as good as gone when Tavares left, now that might not be the case. Lou Lamoriello has done a great job there, and Trotz is a fabulous coach and has proven it yet again. So.
Explain to me why the NHL suspends a player for turning down the All-Star game.
Well, I think it's because then all of a sudden you might have a bunch of players just saying, hey, you can't go. What I don't like is that you have this loophole where the goalies can always bow out because you have these teams that are starting with back-to-backs, and that was kind of the Dubnyk story I wrote the other day is technically Dubnyk could have done what Carey Price did and said, hey, I know I'm only going to play in Chicago or in Dallas, so I'll just skip the game, rest up, and not even get my quote-unquote suspension. Yeah, so it's kind of like in baseball when your pitcher's suspended 5 games, right. When it really is one start.
Exactly. Well, I saw in the NFL Pro Bowl, they had like 31 alternates.
Yeah,
people didn't want to play. Is Price not
so
suspended?
That's why. I mean, Carey Price backed out. Ovechkin backed out. They said that Carey's been dealing with an injury all year, so maybe that's factual, maybe it's not. But I think that's the big reason is to make sure that the people that are going go. And what's bad is that then there's a legitimate injury by McKinnon, but he has to go there anyway just to keep himself from getting suspended for an injury that actually is true. And by the way, that happened so late in the game. They wanted like a Zach Parise. Thank goodness the lead didn't just say, Zach Parise, you're the guy. Because then Zach would have bowed out because he went to Disney World with Prosser, and Prosser's family, their families went together, and so at that late juncture, he wasn't going to go change his plans. So.
And it's also depriving the fans. Ovechkin's going to be suspended for a game. Fans can't watch him play in a game that actually means something.
Yeah, but the reality is that if it was a legit injury, he'd probably miss the game anyway, and if he's going to just back out because he doesn't want to go, well, that's the punishment for doing it. So so he could have gone. but his owner lets him get away with everything anyway. So remember, his owner was going to be like, "Yeah, you can go to the Olympics." So